I don't know, for some reason, my Bluetooth headphones went on. These are wired headphones, so a different set of headphones picked up. I don't know why. I just turned Bluetooth off on my computer. Yeah, it was just kind of random that all of a sudden the computer decided it wanted to connect it with I don't want to talk to these headphones anymore. I want to talk to those. Like, why? Why? Who told you to do that? We were doing fine, right? Yeah. Thank you. I've had them for a long time. I've got these, and I also bought those nice Apple ones, but I have them in another room. Well, I think the Apple ones are nicer, but they have more noise canceling. Yeah, those Apple AirPod Max things, those are cool. But I keep them in the house. It's very noisy in my house, so I keep them in there to when I want quiet. And then here, I'm in my home office. It's not so noisy here, so I don't need as much noise canceling here. I am in Burlingame, California. Burlingame is right by the San Francisco airport, so it's in the peninsula. Yeah. It's like a 5-minute drive from SFO airport. So we're pretty close. Yeah. Yeah. So there's Daly City's a little north. You have Millbrae, which is like right at the airport, and Burlingame is like just one town south of the airport. Mm-hmm. Mhm. Got it. Hold on, my daughter's here. One second.
Wanna hide it, but I don't want the crying. So say what I need to, but I don't wanna blame you. Wanna know where your heart is, wanna know, yeah. You're in the back of my head, yeah, I still think about you. But it's not like how I did when we were dumb and younger. I can't decide if it's love, or if we got too used to it. We were kids then, staying at our parents. Now we're grown older, fight 'cause we're colder, colder, and we don't speak. I don't feel a heartbeat that I should feel, that I should feel. We ran out of love. We ran out of love. We ran out of love. Lately we've been different, ain't got the commitment like we did in the summer when we fell in a hot chair. We were so innocent in love, but now we're just going apart. Yeah. You're in the back of my head.
Hey guys, thank you guys for joining. I'm really excited to have Vidal here today with us. He is an engineering manager at LinkedIn. Before we get into today's meat of today's session for the resume review, Vidal, would you like to introduce yourself? Perfect. Thank you, Vidal. Really quickly, some folks can't hear us, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna change. Can you guys, Noble, can you guys hear us now? Apologies if you couldn't hear me before. I just hear music. All right, let's see if what's going on because I am not playing music. Yeah, I could hear you as well. Can you guys? So you guys can hear me okay? Say yay Vidal if you can hear him. Okay, now the music is off. Got it. But can you guys hear Vidal? Oh, we are good. Folks can hear you. So we are on. I'm so sorry. My music was playing in the background and I guess it picked it up. Um Now people can't hear you. I am so confused. Guys, what is going on? You know what? Okay, try speaking now.
Hello.
I think everyone's like, hopefully you guys can hear him. Yes, Raymond, Noble, Kunal, I think they can hear you now.
Okay,
Awesome.
wonderful. Wonderful.
Hey
Hi,
guys, thanks
guys.
for joining. Just say what you're looking forward to in today's session. In the chat, as you can see on the YouTube live, we're doing a new format today where I want to see your comments as we're talking through the interview so that we can bring these questions up to Vidal during the live session. So that's something new. Thanks, Vincent. We did a bit of work in the back end to get the new format done. So I guess, Vidal, tell me about yourself. What is something, you mentioned a bit of background of yourself. You started in Florida and you transitioned your way into as an engineering manager at LinkedIn. Can you tell us the difference between a software engineer and the expectations of a software engineering manager? What is one thing that you felt you had to learn the hard way?
Oh my gosh.
Hey,
They're totally
Jacob.
different. They're absolutely totally different jobs. And I would say probably the biggest difference is you see, as a software engineer, you're working with computers, and computers are very, very predictable, it turns out. If you write the same program and you execute it on two identical or two different computers, you're going to get the same result every time. But you're dealing with human beings who have a lot of state and a lot of weird stuff going on. So if you run the same program against two human beings, you're going to get possibly a totally different output. Human beings are not so predictable as computers. So that's probably one of the biggest differences is what you're dealing with.
Yeah, no, you're right. It is quite different working with people. As a
Hmm.
sales consultant and as a founder of Disclosed, when I work with people, it is quite variable. And even
Hmm.
after
Yes.
the first 30 minutes, you still can't get a read for who you're talking to sometimes. And it's fun and it's quite frustrating at the same time. But thank
Yeah.
you for elucidating the difference between software engineers and the software engineering manager. I've had that question myself. For folks who have just joined, remember to pop in some questions in the chat. I will be pulling some of your questions into our chat today with Vidal. So let's jump into today's session. We have a great group going. I see Noble, Kunal, Jacob, thanks for joining again. So in terms of today's session, as typical for all of our live sessions, I'm going to start with the disclaimers. First, the advice is endorsed by the individual and not by LinkedIn. And what that means is you can't take today's session and apply that to every single role you see in LinkedIn or within the tech company. This is Vidal's perspective with the roles that he's hiring for and even what he's seen throughout industry. Two, this is a safe space for learning. During the session, we might give really critical feedback. That's not to make the resume holders feel bad about themselves. It is a way for us to really give feedback for those who are going through the job seeking process, unable to get feedback through this very treacherous process. This is a great forum to get that with the hiring manager here in front of us. And lastly, why am I forgetting this? Oh, why Vidal has been chosen for the session today. Vidal has rejected people, whether that's candidates, resumes from his current position, from his past experience at Uber. He's had a lot of experience saying no to candidates, and we want to extract some of those reasons why. What are some of the pitfalls that candidates go through, or resumes that kind of fall into the do not touch pile? So we're going to get some insights from there. In today's session, we're going to quickly introduce Vidal again because I think some folks didn't catch his intro. The second thing is we're going to actually screen share anonymized resumes and really put this feedback into tangible advice. So we're going to screen share. I think we have 2 today. We're going to keep it more of a discussion. So I want questions from you guys in terms of what feedback you want from Vidal. All right, let's get started. Vidal, would you like to introduce yourself again?
Sure, happy to. So my name is Vidal Grapera. I'm currently an engineering manager at LinkedIn, where I manage teams working on developer productivity. So I have a real passion for software engineering. That's what I've worked in. I've worked in the industry a long time. If you look at my profile, you'll see that I've worked at a bunch of different tech companies like Uber, Autodesk, Walmart Labs. I had my own startup. I've worked at other people's startups. So I've been in the Bay Area for quite a while. And I've written a couple books. I'm originally from Miami, Florida. I went to school in Pittsburgh, then in LA, and then here too. So I've been around a little bit. And yeah, I'm just happy to help people. So I have a side project and passion project where I help engineering managers at a site called managersclub.com. But I also do mentoring and coaching, of software engineers, right? Because that's my job as engineering managers, to coach engineers. So I'm happy to help people, young people, in their career.
Are you okay? And I want to ask on behalf of all our viewers, are you okay with folks connecting with you on LinkedIn after the event?
Sure, absolutely.
Oh,
Send me a
guys!
message. Yeah.
Yeah, and hopefully, I want to set you guys up for a one-on-one with Vidal. So be sure to post your favorite quote from today's session on
Oh boy.
LinkedIn. Tag Vidal, myself, and
Oh
Disclose. We want
boy.
to see what you can get out of it. By the way, Vidal, it's usually never bad quotes. It's honestly like, wow, I didn't realize I said that nugget, or you said that nugget, and you're like, ooh, who is this person? So
Right.
don't be worried about that. Um, I,
Okay.
my first question for you, Vidal.
Yes.
Let's talk about the criteria you expect from your team, what you're looking for within your team as you're hiring engineering manager roles, senior software engineers, even software engineers within your
Yeah.
role. Soft and technical skills. What do you look for in candidates?
Well, there's certain basic qualifications you need to have for the role, right? For each role, we have set out certain basic qualifications. But as I've gotten older and I've gotten more experience, like I focus
Wiser, not
less,
older,
yeah,
wiser.
gotten wiser and more experienced. I actually look more and more now towards um, qualities that you can't easily train for. You see, because I used to earlier in my career ask a lot of very pointed technical questions about the technologies we were using to try to figure out if someone was a real expert in something, how sharp they were in these things. But now I realize, a lot of these things can be learned, right?
Mm,
And they can be prepared for. So these very pointed technical questions aren't as interesting to me. I'm interested a lot in people's um, you know, maybe a little bit more now in their motivations, their goals, their aspirations. So, as an engineering manager, I normally run behavioral interviews on people now. I don't do the technical coding interviews or the system design interviews and things like that. So, since I'm asking behavioral questions, I'm really trying to dig at what makes you tick, what's your motivation, what are your goals? Are you someone who is a go-getter, someone who, is ambitious, make things happen. These are kind of things that I'm looking for. How self-aware are you? Uh,
Talk
you
about the
know,
self-aware. What do you mean by that? How self-aware are you?
well, this is tough because it requires a certain amount of maturity. How self-aware you are. But for example, I might ask you questions about things that have gone wrong, in your career or in certain projects you've worked on. I do like to ask questions about not just your proudest achievements, but what are some of the things that didn't go well. And then I'll try to ask you, like, well, what did you learn about it? Right? Or what happened? And so, an example of a question that shows very little self awareness would be like, well, it went wrong because these people are all jerks, right? And they don't know what they're doing and all that. A much more self aware question would be like, well, in retrospect, maybe I should have done this differently, or I should have done this better. Like, what was your role in the unsuccessful outcome as opposed to just what other people did wrong? So, I'll try to ask to see, are people self-aware? Obviously, just having a conversation with someone, you'll try to determine, how bright are they, things like that too. It's important, right? You can't really train intelligence. So you need people who are very, sharp and insightful and stuff like that. So you want to see that as well.
Yeah. I know we don't talk about, today we're not really talking about, we hear
Hold
your
on, my
kids.
daughter's here. My daughter's
I
asking
can
me to
hear her.
sign something.
Signature right here.
Okay.
I need my own reading.
Okay, perfect. Let me sign here. Okay, there it is. It's my daughter, Bridget.
Hi, Bridget.
I need parent signature.
Okay, I'll sign that. Sorry, guys.
You're fine. You're fine.
Okay.
Guys, meet Bridget, who's not on the call.
She's off camera, but yeah. I have 6 kids, by the way. So I have 6.
In
yeah,
the
I'm very
Bay
busy.
Area. You were insane.
I am insane. Yeah, well, a lot of people say I'm insane. But that's a different question.
Okay. Awesome. Vincent says hi, Bridget. We have some folks wanting to say hi. So thank you for elucidating what you're looking for within candidates. And to your point, it's what is not teachable that you look for, not necessarily looking for, do you know the skill? How well can you code? Because you've understood that those can be learned over a couple years. But what cannot be learned is how quickly they learn. Or I guess how quickly they pick things up is a behavioral aspect, not a technical skill set that they can bring to the table. So thank you for elucidating that. I actually want to review that as we're looking through the interviews. How can you tell that this candidate is bright in terms of the skills that you've mentioned today? So motivation, goals, objectives, what are the soft skills that you can pull out from these resumes?
Okay.
Great. Awesome. So let's go ahead and let's start screen sharing the resumes we have.
All right, wonderful. Let me pull that up. I haven't looked at these before. Let's see.
Vidal has not looked at them, which means this is an authentic experience in terms of what Vidal is seeing.
All right. So the first resume, well, first thing catch my attention, they went to USC. I actually went to I have a master's from USC also. So I'm going, oh, that's cool. They went to USC. But Master of Science in Environmental Engineering, 3.6, and then this. All right, so the education is up front. Okay, it's fine. I don't know. Well, not obviously, but I don't know this school in China. Though I do know USC, so I don't really have an opinion on this school. Let's see what the work experience.
I guess in terms of education, how big of a weight do you put education in your hiring process?
Well, for certain roles, it's a requirement. Okay, it's absolutely a requirement that you have a certain level of education. But I have hired people with like non-traditional backgrounds who don't have college degrees in the past. So I mean that can happen. I don't hire environmental engineers, to be clear. I hire like software engineers. So this is just for for the purpose of this demo that we're doing. Like if I was actually hiring someone for software engineering and the first thing I saw was their degree was in environmental engineering, I would be like, oh, okay, is this even a match at all? Right?
Yeah.
Like I would want to see, like if I'm hiring a software engineer degree in software engineering or degree in some relevant discipline. So I don't know what the job description is here, by the way. So I don't know exactly what we're looking for.
Let's put it in the context. I think we can extract the most with the positions that you're currently hiring for. So I think you have 4 under your belt that you're really looking under. Yeah. Quick skim. It seems that it's down on the totem pole just because of the education. You're going to qualify that with the work experience, the projects, I'm presuming.
Right.
So let's move on to the experience side.
All right, let's see. So, worked at Hydraulics and Environmental Research and Testing Institute. Okay, environmentalist. I guess one thing that's missing here is where is this company? Like, where was this work done? Usually, you'll see that. Like where was that? So they were an environmentalist. They were there for 1 year, analyzing and monitoring data.
In terms of the location, why is that important? Just out of curiosity for you.
Well, typically, so one thing for a lot of the positions that I have, you have to have permission to work in the United States, right? So if all their jobs are outside the United States too, there's different. I've worked with people from other countries, right? And I do like that, but there's different cultural, there's different cultural differences, So is this someone who's worked their entire life at companies outside the United States, or was like some of the work
Makes
outside the
sense.
United States, and then they came to the United States, so they might have experience working in a U.S. company, right?
Yeah.
So this person, I don't know.
Curious. Jacob has a question. Maybe I should have asked this before, actually. What positions are you hiring for, Vidal? Can you give us a brief overview as
Sure.
to what you're hiring for?
Yeah. So I have 4 openings, but really a couple major things. One, I need 2 front end software engineers, full stack or front end software engineers for one of my teams. So we build internal tools at LinkedIn, and I need engineers to work on those. Then I have another opportunity. I have another team which works in code authoring, and so there we extend some of these popular code editors or IDEs like IntelliJ, Visual Studio Code. So we're writing, for example, extensions and plugins to those tools. So it's more like app development in that case. And so looking for an engineer for that. And then I have a position for like a staff engineer who may want to be a manager. So someone way more senior in that team as well. So I'm looking for people who work on improving productivity through these like developer tools like IntelliJ, Visual Studio Code, or people who build, say, internal web apps that help developer productivity.
Cool. Jacob, I hope that answers your question. Feel free to ask further questions if you want him to clarify specific roles you're interested in, and same goes for the rest of the viewers as well. Focus.
Okay.
Great.
So again, I'm not an environmental engineer, but I'll just say like a couple things. So this first one, okay, that they analyze this data and the model. What was the impact of that? I guess it's not really clear. Was that a big deal? Same thing. They tested and analyzed this other stuff. I mean, was that something that they did like over a period of a day, a week? Was that did that take like 6 months? I don't know like how big a project that was. I guess the same thing with the other 2. So I guess what I'm missing, and again, I'm not an environmental engineer, but it'd be like, how big were these projects? Like, do they look like, how significant are they?
When you say significant, are you looking for dollar value of the whole program, the impact that it would bring? Are you looking for efficiencies? What are you looking for in terms of impact?
So I'll give you like an example of maybe from my field, right? Like if you say that you designed, built, and implemented an entire web app to do something, right? That would seem like, okay, that's pretty significant, right? Like they built an entire system basically, as opposed to, I built a widget, that went into a bigger app, right? So, or I wrote some scripts to do some kind of maintenance task, right? So since I know the field, if you tell me like what you did, I might have some. Now, of course, you can tell me more about it, but I get some idea. Was that like does that sound like a impressive or significant task? So I don't know, if I'm hiring someone to be an environmental engineer, does analyzing this stuff and testing that, does that seem like significant? Does that seem like a good experience, or is that like a minor thing? I don't
Yeah.
know. I
Hmm.
don't know. And so if it had an impact, that might help me say like, oh, that was pretty significant. I spent 6 months analyzing this thing, and then it led to this other result. Then you might
Yeah.
say, oh, maybe that was a big deal. You know,
Hmm.
um, let's see. Collaborated with graduate students. The topic was, see, now that's kind of ambiguous in a way, like collaborated. Well, what was the collaboration, right? Was the collaboration that I talked with them? Was a collaboration that I wrote a document with them?
Yeah.
So again, I'm struggling in this one to really understand the impact and significance of the work. Um,
Gotcha. Okay. So it seems like there's a couple of be careful with the verbiage that we're using in the resume. If I'm reading this resume as well, from my perspective, this person can do something very well, I'm sure. So analyzing, testing, they can test, they can
right.
sample, they can do things. If you're going for a contractor position, good, go for it. Because that's what well, in my industry, it's called contractors or,
Yeah.
temps. Um, but for employees, we're looking for the other types of soft skills. So, how can you lead a team? How can you coach others? How can you bring a team to have the same type of impact that you wanted for that project? That's just some of the items that is missing from this work experience. To your point, I think collaboration is a very, very ambiguous term. I'm collaborating with you, Vidal, on this resume screening, but you
Yep.
never know what collaboration really means. So
Yeah.
putting collaboration in the context of actual deliverables would help. Um, Collaboration
Yeah.
might be like one meeting. It might be several weekly meetings that you
Right.
yourself created, that really drove the program to success, meeting the timelines that you had in as part of the program. So really define what collaboration means, because nowadays I think it's being diluted with what collaboration entails. That's my one point for collaboration.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's just, it doesn't tell me, it's not compelling, right? It doesn't tell
Hmm.
a compelling story that you collaborated, right? Um, let's see, let's scroll down. There's
Yeah.
some projects. Well, okay. I mean, we look at the graduation dates. Okay, so someone, doesn't have that much work experience, because now we're listing projects. Okay. Um, so compilation environmental force project, team member reviewed for a project, organized a field trip, took charge, assisted. So, this is a little better, because at least, organizing a field trip, shows some, I don't know, leadership, organization, right?
Hmm.
Where they took charge of the air part of, I don't know what this
Yeah.
EIR is. So I like those bullets 2 and 3 are more powerful. I don't know, like reviewing these regulations, like what does that mean? Like, that means just read this document. I'm not in this field, so I don't know exactly what it means. Maybe that has some special meaning to review these regulations. And then assisted is kind of like, I don't know to what level you assisted.
I think
Um,
you're right. I think the review, that first bullet point is weak, and sometimes you can use weak bullet points to complement something that's powerful. So you can say you took charge of the air part of
mhm.
EIR by using this new model and reviewing and abiding by CEQA for the project. So it does it maybe it shouldn't exist on its own. Take an assessment for
Yeah.
those listening. Really assess what's each bullet point entails. Is it strong enough for it to exist as its own separate bullet point? Do you have the impact on there? Reviewing CEQA for a project, I don't know if either of us can feel the impact of that.
Yeah. Let's see. Design of wastewater treatment course project. Team leader. Okay, that's better. Team leader. That sounds good. Applied this and drew the process flow diagram. Okay. So I guess they can use AutoCAD. researched and determined the design parameters. Okay, that's more powerful.
Yeah.
And edited and elaborated the final report where we got an A. Okay, well, that's good that they got an A. Um, if something that would be good, maybe it's further down the resume. Like if they did really well at school, like if they got some awards, if they were like dean's lists, these kind of things, these are good things to call out, right? That
Yeah.
you were like an outstanding student. Um, so
Especially once you've graduated for early career professionals. Now,
mhm,
for 10 plus 5+ years of experience, it might not be relevant
yeah,
anymore for Dean's
no,
List. But Jacob, I see not a question, but a suggestion. Maybe a good bullet point would include an action verb, what was done, why, and its impact to the organization. Spot on, Jacob. It's that XYZ format that you see everyone using. It is very effective because you have all of the what you did, the impact, and how you did it. The what, why, and how. So that's a
yeah.
really great suggestion, Jacob.
Yeah. And on the topic of, the student thing, I don't know to really what degree this is helping, right? GPA of 3.6 out of 4 and 82.8 out of 100, you
Hmm.
know? Um, I mean, master's degrees aren't really graded from what I remember when I got mine on the same scale as undergrad degrees, right? The grades are much higher. So this doesn't, neither of these on the surface to me look like so outstanding that it might just be better just to strike them, you know?
I know
Um,
that some companies have minimum GPAs, so
oh,
yeah, I,
okay.
I think some
Then,
companies require a minimum of 3.0 to actually apply, especially after you've graduated university, like for newly grads.
okay,
That might
then,
be one of the things that I don't think it hurts them,
okay.
but that's a great point though. Is it
Yeah,
really value add?
right. Is it that high that it's worth calling attention
Yeah,
to?
yeah.
Let's see. Skills, we go here like Microsoft Office. I don't know if I really call out
You know,
as much as we love Microsoft Office, I don't know if I'd call that out as a skill.
I've interviewed several folks and they all say Microsoft Office is not a skill. But then
Yeah.
you talk to business folks and they're like, yeah, Microsoft Office is a skill, which is quite odd because I guess you're working with different disciplines and that indicates how proficient you can be. For business folks, you don't have to be technologically savvy. So it stands out if you know Microsoft Office. But you're right. In a software engineering world, do you really need to? Is it assumed that you probably should know that, given that you can make your own resume, you know?
Right, right. For an engineer, I wouldn't list. Yeah, if you're applying as, I don't know, a bookkeeper or something, sure, you could put it. But software engineer, I wouldn't put this. This actually looks bad to me that you would put this. Okay.
Hmm.
AutoCAD, that's cool. I don't know what Mike 11 is, but okay. And MATLAB, I've heard of.
Hmm.
Um, experiment equipment. Okay, so you know some of this experiment equipment, and they have a certificate. Okay.
Just out of
But
curiosity, what are the tools that you use within LinkedIn? Just so for folks who want to revamp their resume, emphasize that in your resume if that's relevant.
well, I mean, it's all software, right? So
Hmm.
typically, what you see in a software engineering resume would be like computer languages that someone's familiar with
Hmm.
or frameworks. So they might list, like, for example, I'm really good at Java, I'm really good at, or JavaScript or Python. These are the frameworks that I'm very familiar with. Maybe some software tooling that you've used, but that hardly matters, in
Hmm.
most cases. It's kind of assumed that you kind of know how to use, some of the tools. So I think the most important things that we're looking for is like, do you have, oftentimes openings in software engineering, they're for a specific language, they're to do work in a specific language or a specific framework or something. So if you have relevant experience in it, that can be a plus. The other stuff is be like, oh, okay, that's nice that you have that. Um, certifications usually aren't that helpful. Um, so at least in software engineering, I know people have lots of certifications you can get, uh, but for the roles I'm feeling, they usually doesn't get you much.
Hmm.
So the most important thing would be like, do you have skill in the language and the frameworks and the platforms that we're using in these projects, right?
Gotcha. And there are some folks who talk about how certain frameworks, even though you use, let's say, Java, in your everyday role, if you don't or if you don't have a experience with Java, is that still okay? So maybe your past role used Python, or your previous company used Python, or vice versa. Maybe you use Python and they use Java. What is your perspective on not having the same in the experience, not having the exact match of the language that you use or frameworks that you use?
Well, I mean, if you don't have it, then it's something that you're going to have to learn, right?
Hmm.
Because all software projects are written using a certain language, right? So if you just don't have that skill, so it's gonna be like, if you have it, that's great, because that assumes then if you were to get the job, you could just start right away. But if you don't have that skill for whatever reason, then it's just it's like an impediment, right? Now you're gonna have to learn it. Now you might be an otherwise outstanding candidate in every other thing, so you might say, okay, fine, this is learnable, not gonna hold it against you, right? Like, but it's like a plus if it matches. Okay.
Mm.
But the I'll just say a little bit on that from software engineering resumes that I see. And we haven't gotten to the point of like what disqualifies people a lot, but sometimes people will list too many things down here. They'll like stuff this section with keywords, because I know they're trying to be picked up by these
ATS
um,
system or
ATS
automated.
systems and stuff.
Hmm.
But if you put too many keywords here, it kind of turns me off, right? If you were to list like, you know, 20 different languages and frameworks and all these things, because you know what the reality is, you can't really know that many of them that well, right? So then it's kind of telling me you're just kind of keyword stuffing. And then I'm not sure which ones do you really know and which ones are you just trying to like stuff in there because maybe you just casually used it. So I really hate that. Okay.
Hmm.
So I would put like the ones that have some work experience in, right? Like another good thing would be, it'd be like, you see, like this is good here, right? Like, see, they said that they did this work and the site layout with AutoCAD, right?
Yep.
So you almost don't even need to list AutoCAD here, because reading the resume, one, the keyword is there, and two, I can know like, okay, you actually used AutoCAD here at this company, right? So I can say, well, it's not a company, this is a course project, but let's say it was a company, right? Say this was a company, I'd say, okay, so they worked on this job where they had to use AutoCAD, so they must know it, right? So that's really like the best way, is kind of weave it in the
Mm.
narrative, like we use this, I did this work using this tool, got this outcome. So I know like, okay, you got the tool, you have the outcome. That's kind of a nice way to weave it in, as opposed to just dumping
Yeah.
keywords.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And when Jacob was mentioning the what, why, and how, the how is where that's where you're actually that's where you can highlight the skills that or the frameworks that you used.
Right.
That's a great way to do that. Cool. Thanks for
Yeah,
reviewing this resume. What about the next one? How do you feel about the next one as we're kind of running through?
sure. Well, I will say, good thing about this one, it's one page, which is good. Like I know we kind of criticized it a lot, but um, you know, okay,
Yeah.
let's go to the next one. This one, let's see. I don't know what this is. What is the job we're hiring for here?
Let's presume that for this case, it seems that it's a bit away from software engineering.
Hmm.
So I think it might. How about let's run through this one pretty quickly in 10 minutes? And I want to spend a bit of time for what you expect from software engineering resumes that you've seen in the past. I do want to touch upon that because we unfortunately didn't have a software engineering resume for
Sure.
us to review anonymously.
Okay. So anyway, we'll just general.
Yeah.
Okay. So IE Business School. Yeah, I'm not familiar with the IE Business School. Okay, Master in Management, Distribution Specialist, GMAT 700. Um, yeah, that, since I don't know what this school is, that doesn't necessarily grab me. The GMAT, I don't know if you really need to put it, but IE Foundation Fellow, High Potential Award, MA Improvement Ambassador, Elite Member. That sounds really good, right? Like that sounds like someone who's distinguished himself. So I like this bullet a lot. Okay.
Ooh.
So I think that's really good. Coursework in data and technology applications. Okay, some, they're listing coursework. I don't know if that really adds a lot because, you're getting a master's degree in management. So I would assume as part of that, you had to do coursework
I
in
guess,
management.
yeah, I guess it's if there are electives that you did specific to business school. I know for coursework, it is quite unique. So in terms of, let's say that this person was a computer scientist, they had a graduate degree. Is it appropriate to put coursework that is an elective? It's like something that they're passionate for.
I mean, if they're really passionate, they say, like I specialize in a certain
Yeah,
thing. Like this is a master's degree, right? They specialize in a certain domain,
yeah.
or they TA'd a class in it, or they were part of some club related to it or something. That would be interesting. But I think just listening to coursework, like I just think if you just said like you're a master's in management and you're a fellow high potential, I think that's to me sounds pretty good, right?
Hmm.
I don't know what the coursework in you know is adding. So I don't know if this is really good use of space.
Gotcha. It's
Is
not. It doesn't seem like it's bad for this person, but it's more of can you prioritize other things to fit into your resume?
Yeah, let's see
Okay.
what else they have, right?
Yeah. So in
So here they
terms of,
go
I
ahead.
think I see the person who has this resume. Um, she's hoping for feedback from a product management perspective, as she's a LinkedIn associate PM, APM applicant. I know,
Okay.
Vidal, you're quite removed from product managers, but you work with them. You have it's not like completely removed from you.
Hmm.
What experiences are worth highlighting in terms of collaborating with and understanding more technical people and concepts? So, from your perspective, what would you look for in a solid product manager? This is kind of a really odd request.
No, 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 it's fine. So product man, yeah, I have worked with a lot of product managers in the past, some really great ones. So I would say, um, if this was for product management, okay,
Hmm.
then um, okay, maybe it would make a little bit more sense that you're listing this, some of these, okay, and then what's good? Okay, hold on, Bridget is here. Bridge, I'm on a
I'm
call.
sorry, Jay. I didn't mean
What?
to.
Can I have a snack?
I didn't mean
Go ahead.
to butcher the
Okay,
pronoun, but
I'm
go for
I'm
it.
I'm I'm back. So what make in my industry, what makes really good product managers is you don't have to, but if they have a technical background, that's really great. So if this person, like they have a bachelor of science, okay, from MIT, that's good. It's in biology. It's not exactly software engineering or something, but it is an engineering. Well, it's biology. If it was engineering, it would be better, but it is a science, right? So I like that. So I would say because that's the thing which can be helpful. Product managers work with engineers, right? So being someone who can relate to engineers, understand technical concepts is good. So if this resume is for a product management position, um, that's I I think it's good they have a degree from MIT.
Just, I guess, taking a step back, what differentiates good product managers from your perspective, and ones who are not as effective? And I don't name
Oh
names, but
man.
what are the differences from just from your perspective as an engineering manager?
Oh my gosh. That's like a whole
Can of worms.
conversation, whole can of worms, but you know, one of the things that product managers is that they're the voice of the customer, right? So they're good at understanding the the problem.
Hmm.
They're good at understanding the customers, the business, goal that we're trying to meet. You know, they're good at working with designers to come up with designs. They're good at working with the engineers, right? About like what's possible, understanding, here's the things we could do. They're organized, they communicate well. Um, I mean, there's so many things. Some people say that the product manager is like the mini CEO, like in some ways they are, in some ways they're
Yeah.
not. But like someone who has that would be good. So again, if this is a product manager thing, like I like this, that again they distinguish themselves. Hispanic Scholarship Fund, Entrepreneurship Summit Scholar. Okay, so on anything related to entrepreneurship, I think is good for product managers because product managers are like they're creating products, right?
Hmm.
Which is what entrepreneurs do.
Yeah.
So elements of entrepreneurship. Uh, if they were an entrepreneur, that's great. If they've worked at entrepreneurial companies, that's great. So I think those are, and also product managers like at big companies, also being very data driven is important, right? So making decisions based on data
So,
can be
talking about
important.
data driven, if we go to the professional experience, can you extract out whether this candidate would be data driven from your perspective?
Let's take a look. I haven't gotten to this yet. So, market research and strategy case analyst, Paraview Ventures, Instagram filter strategy. So this was, wait, but this is professional experience for only like 3 months. It was like an internship, maybe.
It might have been, yeah.
It might be good to call out it was like an internship because
Hmm.
it's a little bit, I'm having to assume because it's in the summer for 3 months, probably an internship, but it doesn't mean it's just to call out, internship. Anyway, 1 second case challenge by analyzing 15 competitors. See, I like that. They won second. I don't know how many, but sounds good. Could have been out of two. Wouldn't have been good, but it's a big field, right?
I
They won
used to do
second.
ice skate random. I used to ice skate, and there were only no, three competitors, and I got third place. And I was like, I am awesome. I got third place,
Place.
but there's only three folks. So,
Yeah.
but anyways, you're right. Out of how many?
Out of how many would be
Yeah.
good? Like second case out of, 500. That would be very
Ooh.
impressive,
Yeah.
right? Selected for core of 15 out of 4,300 plus. That sounds very good. Okay. Survey 230 users and analyze filter trends to define. So this is good. Okay. So this is, you surveyed people, you analyzed, interviewed 5 administrators to identify pain points. See, that's good. So talking to customers, to identify pain points in the speaker emphasization process in academic and corporate settings, prioritize core features. Great. Based on competitive analysis, interview insights. This is good. Developed unique beachhead markets. Great. This is all, yeah, very product managey stuff, right?
Hmm.
The market segmentation. So this, I mean, I don't have roles for product managers. I don't hire them right now, but
Do you
this
hire for
seems
product
to,
managers?
LinkedIn does. I do not.
Are you part of the? I know that there typically is a panel when folks hire for product managers. Have you been part of a panel for product management?
Yes, at previous companies. At previous
Mm,
companies, I've hired product managers, but at this company, I do not.
gotcha. Thanks
Um,
for that
so I'm, so I'm,
clarification.
so I'm, so I'm not involved in that. So I don't even know what the LinkedIn panels are for product managers. Um, but this to me seems, this seems very good, like a very good internship for someone who wants to be a product manager. Um, let's see the next one, student representative for the Rainbow Lounge. Okay, aha. This is from 2013 to 20. This is like 7 years. 7 years. Okay, that's a long time. Increase average event attendance 50%. Okay, that's good. See, so there's an impact there. Inform managers of 3 administrators, including assistant dean, services through time served as a member. Okay, this is good. Collaborate with the dean to promote by altering this. Great. Strategize. See, I like this is
I like
good.
this. Yeah.
This is good because there's a lot of specifics, right? They didn't say they just strategize. They strategize with 3 to 10 students to organize a 3-day summit for 50 plus people. Like there's a
It's
lot of
tangible.
numbers to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is very good, like I would say this all sounds really good, and it sounds like it's a leadership thing. I don't know if that was probably a volunteer thing they did, right? I
What's quite
assume.
impressive is the 7 years. Um,
Yeah.
Especially if you're going into an entry position, you can hold something for
Mhm.
more than 1 to 2 years.
Yeah, so this is good.
Cool.
Innovation diplomacy. Innovation, that's good for product management. Formulated 7 region-specific recommendations. There's 15 key things. Okay, so I mean, we go on and on. This person clearly gets like putting numbers and impact. Like they got that part nailed, you know? So this is, they built 6 MVPs. Oh, look at that. They're the founder of The Scoop, an anonymous social experience built for next generation cultural creatives. Um, that's cool. The only thing is it just started, right? So
Hmm.
June of 2020 was not like, so, you know, how long has that been going on? But still, they results, they won some community vertical top 10. Wow. Okay. Pretty cool. I you know, this resume is really good. I would say, they were Scrum Master. Okay. That's good. Um,
And
wow.
I
They have a
like
lot.
a question on the links. I see links typically for a lot of resumes. What do you do anything with the links? Do you click on them or do you ignore them because of policies within LinkedIn?
I don't have any policies that I can't click on links. Like
Okay.
if I would click on links, like if I was, like I would go to their LinkedIn profile.
Mm,
If they had a homepage, I would go to it. I would
like
probably click on
GitHub, I'm
these.
sure.
Yeah, I would go to their GitHub. I'd probably click these links. Um, I might, here's the thing. So normally the way I get involved, okay, as a hiring manager is, um, let's say I'm hiring for a product manager and my recruiters find this person, right? Whoever they are. And they say, Vidal, look at this resume we found. Okay. And I would read it and I go, yeah, this sounds good. Good enough to bring them on for a phone screen
Hmm.
or for an on-site interview. So at that point, I mean, there's enough here that I would say, okay, it's probably good enough. So I wouldn't necessarily have to click on all the links. But when they come to interview on site before I meet them, I'm going to click on all the links,
Mm,
because I'm going to want to see what these things are. I'm going to ask them, hey, I saw this thing. But when you're just trying to, because they might go to the phone screen, they might get knocked out, you
yeah.
know, or they might not, recruiter might say, hey, do you want to, oh, well, actually not interested. So I wouldn't necessarily spend as much time clicking all the links right now. But if I know they're coming on site, I'm definitely going to click all the links.
Okay, so it seems like you save it for later, when it is more, there's less competitors or less resource from your end to evaluate the candidate as a whole. Um, Great. I think that summarizes most of what I wanted to go through with this resume. I want to limit in terms of, I didn't want to give not necessarily false information, but I would like this resume to be pulled into someone who's hiring specifically for PM so that their advice, so that the advice can be more tailored to this particular candidate. Is that okay with you?
Sure. I mean, you can have anyone give them advice on it. I mean, I did what I could.
Yeah,
Um, this is yeah. This I think this resume is
I
is
agree.
pretty. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Pretty good
Yeah.
overall.
What are your overall thoughts between the two resumes that you've received today?
I mean, these two.
Hmm.
Well, I think there's a world of difference between them. This one. Um, you know, I mean, it's easy to scan it, but we don't really have the we don't have any of the impacts. We don't have like the numbers.
Yep.
This one is full. Well, this one also has a lot of stuff to distinguish the person. That's another thing we're looking for, right? When you're looking at a resume, you're gonna get like all these resumes, right? Why should I call this person in for an interview? Well, they seem to be a high achiever, right? Because they're winning awards here and awards there, and they're finishing, in this place. And I mean, so, what they're trying to signal to me is, other people, you haven't met me, but other people have met me and evaluated my work and found me to be above average, right? Far above
Yeah.
average. So if you were to meet me, it's like a signal, right? Like other people have already evaluated me and they've evaluated me highly. So you might also evaluate me highly. I might not, but I might too. Um, so this is just much better. Like all these numbers and awards they got. and this leadership experience. I like it. I like it.
Awesome. Thanks for your final thoughts between the two resumes. Guys, feel free to add anything else into the chat. Jacob, he is a software engineer, and he's like, I could have submitted mine, and I was like, yes, you could have. But don't worry, guys. If you post your favorite quote from today's session, I want to get you on a one-on-one with Vidal. I want to give the one-on-one isn't going to be anonymous, unfortunately, but at least you can get some feedback from him, especially if you're trying to transition or if you're trying to start a career in software engineering. So hopefully that helps answer your question, Jacob. I wanted to leave some time to talk about, well, what's the ideal software engineering resume? But we actually did talk a lot of nuggets within what's a good software engineering resume look like. You like links, you like tangible metrics, something that makes the project, the bullet point, or the experience more tangible, something that you cannot replace from someone else who works as a scientist or an engineer in that role. So I guess one of the things I wanted to ask you granularly is, what are the top 3 reasons you've rejected resumes specifically for software engineers?
Well, sure. I mean, there's a lot of reasons. One of them is just lack of, they don't meet the basic qualifications, right? Like you scan it and they don't have enough work experience, or they don't have the skills you're looking for.
Mm.
Things like that, that just, they, you can't, they're applying. We get a lot of resumes, people just applying, and it's just clear that, I think they just sent in the resume, but it's not real. This doesn't seem like it's even related to their experience, right? Like their experience and qualifications don't seem in any way even related to it. So I'm like, okay, that's going to be out. Um, Ones where, there's just a lot of like buzzwords or these bullets, but you don't really see the impact, the accomplishment, anything like that. Um, you also want to see when you're reading it, like, the career progression. Now, this is not going to be the case for new hire, people just out of school, but say someone's been in the industry for a while, you kind of want to see like some kind of logical career progression.
Mm-hmm.
They went from this company and they were there for so many years, and then they went to another company and maybe they got promoted and stuff like that. If the resume has like no career progression, and just like, then you start to wonder, like, are they going to have career progression with you, right? Like, what's their story? You kind of want to see that a little bit. You want to see stuff that, like, this one has lots of evidence that they excelled at certain things, right? So you'd like to see some things. And so if you don't see that, then it's like, well, why should I pick this one
Mm.
over, all the other ones? You want to give something for me to be like, yes, let's look at this one. You have some things that disqualify them. So those would be some things
Yeah, tell
like
me
that.
about the buzzwords. I'm curious to what you deem as buzzwords that you have a sour taste for.
Because it's like people will dump all these different languages, frameworks,
Oh.
tools, and stuff in, like, under a skills section, you
Hmm.
know? But if you actually dig into it and you ask them, what did you do with these things? They really didn't do much, right?
Like
Like,
on the resume, even. Like you look at their
yeah,
experience, you're like, oh, I don't think you've done anything with these skills or
right.
project.
Right.
Gotcha.
Like, I would like to see, like, if you're going to list these skills, right? Like, they should be used like
Hmm.
in a work environment, or if it's not a work environment, at least like in some kind of side project. If you're going to say like, you know, if you're going to claim, I don't know, Java programming, I would hope that you have some work experience with it, or, you've done something that I can, you can point to, right? Like,
Gotcha.
I like that, because for me, it also kind of gives me a feeling of, um, dishonesty a little bit. If people are putting a lot of stuff on their resume that they don't have experience with, because then I start to question the other stuff, right? If you put on there a bunch of skills which actually have very little skill in the area, then I have to wonder what else on the resume is kind of overstated, you know?
Mm. No, that makes sense. So it's not just diluting it, but in the overall context of the resume. If it's not being used, then you should question, should you even put it there? Especially when you see resumes that have 3 lines of skills when they just list every language that's possible. Then you start wondering, okay, you can't know all of them really well. What is the reason I should hire you? What's that one skill that you have to offer to the table? Jacob has a question for you, Vidal.
Go
And
ahead.
after that question, I have one last question for you before we finalize today's session.
Okay.
Um, Jacob, his situation is such that he has some college but no degree. He's completed boot camps, 2 coding boot camps, and have completed projects and have gotten involved in collaborative work and some freelance work. What else could I do? Could Jacob do besides get a degree to land my first a software engineer gig?
Well, I've hired people who from boot camps. So he's gone to 2 boot camps already.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's so here would be my advice. So there is a lot of demand for software engineering. Okay, there's certainly a lot of demand, and yeah, there are people who have these. I don't know, like you have to have a 4 year degree, you have to have a certain degree, and it sounds like he doesn't have it, but he has the boot camps, right? But find people who don't necessarily um, have that requirement. For example, like a startup, like startups lots of times have trouble hiring people because and a startup probably doesn't have this kind of policy that a large company is going to have, that you have to have a 4 year degree. They just need someone who is going to bust their ass working on this startup idea they have to
Hmm.
get it in the market, right? That's what they really care about, right? You're excited about our idea, you're going to work really hard on it, and we're going to make this startup a success, right? I think that's really important there, rather than you have a formal degree or you don't. Okay. So go to like one of these startups, someplace that's hungry, that doesn't care about that, get a job there, prove yourself. And then if you come and you say, and you have a couple years of experience, right? Then you say like, well, I don't have a college degree, but I have um, X years of work experience. There's actually formulas we use. Like I've worked at some other companies that have this. Like, you either have to have a 4 year degree or N numbers of equivalent work experience, right? And
Hmm.
I don't know what N is based on your company. So then you come,
We're like,
1 minute. I'm on my last question. I'll let you go. And then that's my daughter, Kathleen here. So you do that. So work at some hungry place like that, get a couple years work experience, and then you can apply at one of these bigger companies and use your work experience as an equivalent for
That's a
not
great
having a college degree.
That's a great point. Um, Hopefully that answers your question, Jacob. And the last question I want to end this session with is, what nugget of advice would you want to leave the viewers today, both our live session and for folks who are tuning in after the live session, so in the recorded session?
Um, I don't know. I'll say something that okay, I'll leave you with this, which I tell a lot of people. So like in school, since a lot of people are younger, right? Like in school, a lot of it is your um you know you do the work on your own, and you turn it in and you get grades and all that, right? And in the industry in software engineering, it's really a team sport. So think of it as like you're joining like a soccer team, a professional football team. You have to work well with other people, and it's like a team effort, and that's a big difference. It's not so much an individual effort anymore.
Gotcha. And so your experiences, guys, should reflect that as well. In terms of that's the difference, honestly, between academic projects and experience is there is number one, academic projects are usually it's usually in a environment that's ideal. There's no real constraints, there's no monetary constraint, resource constraints. that an experience does have. Great nugget of advice. Thank you so much, Vidal, for joining us today. For folks who are still on the line, be sure to post your favorite quote from today's session on LinkedIn. Tag me, Vidal, and myself for today's session, and we're excited to see you next week. Thanks, Vidal. Take care.
Thank you, guys. Gotta go. Bye. Nice to meet you.
Nice to see you as well. Oops. Thank you, guys. Ooh, this is super odd. I'm going to just stay here because clearly it's not optimized for myself talking. But next week, we're going to have a marketing manager from Microsoft come join. So be sure, not next week, in 2 weeks from now. She is really great. I love talking to her. Her name is Stephanie. She's a senior product marketing manager. What a mouthful. Senior PMM at Microsoft. That session, we're actually going to talk about behavioral questions. What's a good behavioral question, and how do you answer those? So it's going to be a bit different from today's session where we focused a lot on resumes. For folks who have troubles with interviews, be there in 2 weeks. So we're excited to see you there, and have a great, rest of the 2 weeks. I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Heard it all my life, sit up all my nights, said I can't be famous. You're famous, no James. It's when I shoot my names. This trying to get that loot and pay my dues for that. Just nameless, became this, they shameless. Cover up they lameness. Really got no brain and you want to blame. They all the same. But you can't not tame this. I'll be on my reign. I'ma leave my mark, I'ma leave my